Hi, welcome to the Big Line, betting in startup ecosystem. Today we have Shubham along with me from Aeravati Ventures. Hi Shubham, how are you?
Hey, all good, all good. Just a rough weekend, but yeah, all good.
Before diving into deep, for the audience, maybe a short brief about you would be a lot helpful for them.
Yeah, sure. No, definitely. So I'm right now the partner and CFO at Aeravati Ventures. So this is a fund we started about 4 years ago. It's actually been 4 years now, unofficially rather than officially, because a lot of work went behind running around and figuring out how a fund, registration process works, speaking to investors because we've not done it. But in the past, before Aeravati Ventures, I was running my own investment banking company, ran that for 4 years again. And before that, I was, you can say advising early stage startups. The idea was to learn more from founders directly. So it was all about, hey, if I want to be a part of the early stage ecosystem in India, then the best way to do it is to work with founders, right? And this was more sort of a shift that happened while I was working at a unicorn company. And while I was working there, I was speaking with my friend Rishab, who is also a partner at Aeravati. We both started the fund together. Was that there's a huge difference between US and India with regards to the startup ecosystems. And this is when, this is probably in 2018, 2019, when we were having this conversation, back when startup culture overall was becoming more like a tabletop conversation. It was not just something that you would see in a Bangalore or a Bombay, right, or a Chennai. This is something that was becoming a more widespread conversation, right? So when we had this conversation about how India has a very long way to go when it comes to getting to where US is, or even in general as a country which has a lot of potential on what they can do going forward. We decided that we need to get into full time investing. But both of us probably didn't have that much of on ground experience when it came to India investing, especially in the early stages. Rishabh was doing a lot of investing in the US before he moved back. So that's when, while he was sort of moving back, I decided to start advising some early stage startups. So essentially, back in the day, I did everything apart from coding, you can say, for an early stage company. So whether it's product management, whether it's finance and compliances, whether it's board structuring, hiring, fundraising, everything, right? So it was essentially like a crash course to an operator role, because when you're working at a very large startup, I was working at Udaan, I worked at Udaan for a couple of years. The when you're middle management, the output that you have and the end output of the company, you're not able to sort of correlate to certain times, right? And I would say that the speed of execution also slightly gets hampered over there. Whereas if you run an early stage company as well, and a lot of people who might be looking at this do run it, I think everyone understands that the speed for decision making is very quick, right? No one can afford to sit on an idea for months altogether and not actually action upon it, right? So that's something I would say was the biggest learning that came during my stint of advising early stage startups. And during that stint, we learned that the founders value two things most is value add and actual capital, right? And the early stages. So value add was coming in, but there was no actual capital that was coming in from my end. So when Rishabh moved back to India, is when we started the IB practice, with the idea that if we can sort of couple our value add with helping them raise capital as well, helping founders raise capital, then we are sort of giving a like a one-stop shop to founders, because we would do financial advisory, we would do business strategy advisory, and all just for the aim of helping founders out, not for monetary reasons. The monetary aspect was coming from the IB practice, right? So with that IB practice, then we learned a little bit more about how early stage ecosystem in India is like, and where the mistakes are, and what are the things that are going wrong in this space, where are investors investing and where they shouldn't be investing, etc., etc., etc. Which is why throughout that entire journey of the IB practice, we were able to build a lot of our theses when it comes to fund investments. And obviously, Rishabh was already angel investing. When he came back, I did a bunch of investments along with him. So the best way to learn about investing is to actually invest, is to actually lose money as well. Luckily to say that, we didn't lose money in too many companies. We got exited from most of them. But even a small failure is a failure at the end of the day. And that sort of taught us a lot about who we want to be as investors, what kind of founders are probably the right fit for us, or what kind of founders are we the right fit for, right, etc., etc. So that was the journey like. Apart from that, professionally, by qualification, I'm a chartered accountant, although I've not gone the path that most of my CA friends have sort of gone towards, which is the core sort of CA parts. Although whatever I did during my stint learning as well as working in CA firms, it does come into play to a very large extent. I would say that because of that, maybe most of my portfolio companies finance teams don't like me that much, is because they know that there's a person who's understanding what they're doing. And not even finance companies, I would say finance companies still we have a very collaborative relationship with, because it's more about like, hey, helping them out, like let's work on a particular model together, work on a format together, whatever the case may be. I would say the CA firms who started working with them probably don't like me as much, because I was able to call out very early on the kind of I would say missteps that they advise the founder. Because when we do a diligence exercise, when we do some basic sort of conversations with the founder, I'm able to actually see the gaps that are there. And a good CA firm, I would say, yeah, can be a very large difference in an early stage company's journey, especially when they want to raise capital, when they want to move forward, have their sort of right systems in place. And so some people who've not liked whatever my processes are, but yeah, it's been a good journey otherwise.
That's like a really impressive journey, I would say.
And sorry, one more unique thing which I just forgot about is that which I realized when I started moving around in Bangalore circles. As you know, Bangalore is a very very active startup community, right? It's not just a large startup community; it's a very active one, right? Today, without even thinking about it, we can go to a Kormangla or HSR or in Indanagar. There'll be one or two startup events happening, bare minimum over there, right? So during that time, I realized I'm a very rare. I form part of a very rare bucket of people in Bangalore who run a VC fund in Bangalore, because most people as part of the startup community in Bangalore are not from Bangalore, right? So yeah, that's just an interesting fact that I realized over time.
That is also one of the things what I have observed in you. In fact, a lot of things you have done, you have gained as an experience in a very short period, I would say.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
come on, you're a lot young, to be honest.
Right, you can say that.
So obviously these are the skills and exposure what you have been through. But what was that one spark which made you decide that, boss, I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna fix this for the startup ecosystem?
So, see, I wouldn't say I'm fixing anything for the startup ecosystem, right? Because, I'm barely managing any capital to say that, hey, whatever I'm doing is maybe a large answer to the startup ecosystem overall. Um, One thought that I would say resonated with me, which probably made me join the startup ecosystem in the first place, I would say, and then over time, identify what the challenges are, and then try to sort of, you can say, break down the um, traditional walls that have surrounded around the venture capital and the startup industry in India till now. Was that I come from a family business background, right? This is what third generation family business. I've only seen sort of entrepreneurs around me, but these were again traditional businesses, right? And when I sort of got a first hand experience of how technology is shaping businesses, and this is over 10 years ago, I was like, damn, this is a very high chance that a few years down the line, the family business, which, runs the family, may be redundant or irrelevant, or may have to sort of play a good amount of catch up to sort of get to speed with the current times. And that's where I decided that, hey, if I want to be relevant going forward, I need to dive into a different ecosystem. It was very easy. I could have easily said that, hey, I either want to join the family business, or I want to open up a branch associated with it, or do anything in the slightly more traditional space. It was, I would say, a far more accessible to me, because there were relatives, there were family members, there were friends, a lot of people who were in that background, right? So finding a collaboration over there is not that hard. But startup ecosystem back in the day, in my circle, there were next to no one who were running around in those circles, right? So I was like, it's a good time to take advantage of it. Is that it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, because it's not a fad. It's something where innovation is really happening. It's something where people are talking about what next, how can we improve, right? If there is a benchmark of the US, if there's a benchmark of China, if there's a benchmark of Israel and a couple of other countries who are very far ahead on technology, and we can very visibly see that we are behind, then that's a gap, and every good business is formed on a gap. So I cannot say that From day one, I thought I'll be a venture capital investor. That is something which I would say Rishab had a lot more clarity on, my partner, because he was in Indanagar. He saw startups around him from day one. Big Basket, for example, was few doors from him. Aether's first office outside of IIT Madras was next to my friend's house. So as college kids, we would see Aether's graduated college kids literally experiment on skeletal bikes, right? And we thought they were just college kids messing around, right? Because there were some skeletal bikes and they were running it on the road. We thought it's just messing around, but it took us some time to understand that there's innovation happening all around us. So for me, getting into the investor shoes took a little bit more time. For me, it was more from an aspect of if I'm able to help out founders with multiple aspects, that would be my first goal. Is that how can I make a founder's life easier to a certain extent? I did that on a non-committal basis, on a non-transactional basis for a very long time, because I got a kick from it. I got a kick from learning about the founder's business. I got a kick from the fact that, hey, if I can get an idea that can potentially help a company out and actually see the fact that it has helped that company out, that made me feel good. That sort of provided some sort of validation as well. And I could see business happening straight in front of my eyes, right? Which is what I would say felt way more natural to me than anything else. Getting into the investor's shoes was more like an eventuality, wherein if you do really want to make an impact at a larger scale, then that impact comes with some access to capital, right? And investment banking gets you only to a certain extent, because at the end of the day, there you're building very transactional relationships, right? Because your conversation from day one is about a particular investment round. When it comes to investing, at least the way I've liked it, at least with the way that we've been running the fund, it's not about transactions, right? It's about the aspect of the relationship building in the first place, right? Getting to know the other person, right? And then trying to see whether collectively we can build a good and big company together. The founder at the end of the day is the founder, but can we help the founder become a better founder? Can we help the founder make a better company, right? So that is where the thought really started coming from. And during that journey, we started just identifying multiple challenges, multiple problems, multiple areas where, either the startups in general are thinking incorrectly, multiple areas where probably VC funds are thinking incorrectly, and it's not probably my responsibility to go and start preaching to everyone that, hey, you're wrong, I'm right, because everyone's opinion is their opinion at the end of the day, which is why we've not been very vocal about whatever we've been doing. Aeravati as a whole has been flying under the radar for the last 4 years. Now we've started putting in some more effort, because we've realized that unless you are not speaking your own story, someone else is going to speak a different story for you, right? So it's always better that we control the narrative. But again, we're still, compared to any other VC fund that is probably operating in the early stages, we're still relatively flying under the radar, because a lot of our time goes in helping the founders out. So with the problem sets that we identified, it was very centric on, hey, is this something that's happening in the industry just because it has been happening for the last 10 years? Or is this happening because it is relevant for it to happen, right? So we've started changing a lot of conversations around those areas at the fund ourselves. And that started with us looking at how we build our portfolios. That started with us looking at how we look at founder relationships, how we look at deal evaluation, right? So a lot of those things were things that we changed at a fund. So as an early stage fund, our average evaluation timeline in fund one from first conversation to term sheet was probably 7 to 8 months, right? And that sounds scary. It is scary. If I'm a founder raising from Aeravati Ventures and he says that, boss, I'm going to take an average of 6 to 7 months, I will definitely be slightly worried, right? But that doesn't mean that at the end of 6 months I'll say, hey, it's not happening, right? It just means that if it's a company which sort of aligns with our thesis of the company, where the business model makes sense, then we go on a slightly longer journey, because for us it is about understanding the person behind the company more than just understanding the math behind the company, right? Math is very easy to figure out, right? Business models, traction, competition, market sizing, projections, all of those things are very easy. Technology as well, sure, it's not easy, but you can spend a little bit more time and figure it out. But understanding the person takes some time, because when it comes to understanding a person, consistency is very important. Is the founder consistent with its communication, right? Are they being transparent to us about whatever's happening in the company? If you've quoted a particular milestone, are you actually reaching that milestone 5 months later? If you're not, what is the reason you're not reaching that milestone? Are you true to yourself, saying that, hey, I overcommitted because you're an investor and I thought if I give you a high number you will be impressed, and anyways, when money comes we'll see and we'll try to achieve that number? Or was the reason actually a market related reason? Was the reason more internal, saying that, hey, probably we got 3-4 things wrong? I'm no one to judge, right? I'm not building the business like the founder is building the business, right? So I have to listen to whatever the founder says. It's about whether I believe in the founders, whether I trust the founder or not, and whether I'm the right person for the founder. And that's something we started sort of building as a culture within the fund. But at the same time, you cannot just expect someone to trust us blindly and just go on the 6 month process. So we also sort of put all our cards on the table, like, hey, this is what this investment means for us, right? This is at the base level what we are expecting you to do. If that makes sense for you, it makes sense for you. If it doesn't make sense for you, then it's all right, right? As long as we are aware that for me this is a 100 to 700 crore journey in 4 years, and if that's also the similar journey for you, then great, we are on the same page, we can work together on it. If it's not, that doesn't mean that you are doing something wrong. It just means that it's not how I am looking at the investment. Can we help the founder out from day one? We have so many LPs, we have so many people in our network, we have other founders we've worked with in the past, there are other funds. And I mean, I'm on the road, Rishab's on the road, everyone in the team, in fact, is on the road for maybe 20 out of 30 days in a month, right? And if you average out during the year, it's probably half of the month. Every month we're on the road. So we're meeting multiple people across the globe, right? Can we leverage that network for the people that we are evaluating, let alone investing in? Investing is a bare minimum given. But can I open up some doors for people that we have in that 4 month, 5 month conversation that are not only helps to build trust to a certain extent, it not only helps them out from a business point of view, because if they are speaking to someone so often, they would also appreciate that there's an investor who's willing to help out. But it also helps us with feedback. If I'm opened up a connection with a potential customer, if it converts, great, I get some feedback from it. If it doesn't convert, even better, I get even better feedback from it, right? Saying that what is the reason why it has not converted. It all builds into the model. So everything we do with the founders before our investment is all with a reason, and all to ensure that we're not burdening the founder. If we feel that, hey, we are going to start a LDD FDD exercise, who are you working with internally, and are they capable of handling it? I advise them before they even start the exercise, saying that, boss, you should probably beef up your team before you go through this, otherwise you're going to get overwhelmed, right? And I've seen a lot of founders get overwhelmed with the process. So even though we may not come out saying that we are founder friendly, or we may not get portrayed in that particular manner, because at the end of the day we would have seen 4,000 companies and invested in 7, and because of that, and because we're a very 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 small team, our communication sometimes gets missed out, right? We may not have responded to some emails, or we may not have communicated with all our heart, saying that, hey, why are we not looking at this, or whatever the case may be, right? So we may not come out as founder friendly in that way, but whoever continues to engage with us in conversation, they hopefully do see it. And we obviously keep trying to sort of get that feedback from our portfolio companies as well, saying that, hey, where are we going wrong, what are the areas we can improve, and what are the areas that you are currently not able to communicate to us, and how can we improve on that as well. And it's about, can we, once we have decided that we want to invest, can we lift the investor lens, and can we lift the investor veil rather, and make sure that the founders look at us as an extended member of the team, because that's where I would say a true long-term relationship starts. And that's the sort of gap that we're trying to solve for, is that, hey, can we focus more on relationships, less on quantity? So like I said, fund one, extremely concentrated, we did only 7 companies, which you would not again typically associate with an early stage fund doing, right? And it's typical across the globe, but we have our own market related reasons, and let's say founder management related reasons as to why we've done a concentrated company. So essentially it was all about identifying problem sets like this early on, and then trying to solve it in our own way with our own sort of actions.
I think that's a really good thesis of understanding a founder in a period of, let's say, 6 months, to see what all promises he has done is being met or not, to also understand his working style, and a lot of
Yeah,
transparency. I mean, that is
absolutely.
where, in fact, irrespective of the deal being done or not, the value add what you bring in this 6 months might be a lot more than the investment itself. So that's one main thing which most of the founders wouldn't understand. They'd be like, okay, I'm going to VC, I'm going to have the fund, but no, man. See, VC is gonna give you the fund, but you can leverage it properly when you have the proper business connects, and then only it adds a lot more value even for both of the people to join hands and grow together. That's one thing which I believe the founders also are lacking. But saying that, being in Bangalore, you have already seen like 4,000 plus startups. I believe that hundreds of startups come across on a every weekly basis for you. How do you scout these guys? I mean, what do you see in the founder or in the startup? Which do you prefer, the startup or the founder? And what makes you think that, okay, I'm gonna sit with this guy?
No, it's always the founder, right? It's very simple. We come in early. We've come in businesses which were doing, let's say, a lakh of revenue a month. We've come in businesses not doing any revenue as well, and we've been doing angel investing for some time. We've done investment banking, right? So the entire journey, if you look at it in a way, it's always the founder, right? And we don't say it enough, or I would say the industry does not probably talk about it enough. I think VCs probably get glorified a little bit more, and the importance sort of go to fund managers a little bit more. But if you look at it in a way, everyone just talks about the founders. When we are going and speaking to our investors as well, like how much is there to speak about the fund, right? Because a fund is a subset of the companies that we've invested in. If you look at it in that way, so 90% of our time just goes about speaking to about the founders that we've backed, about the founders that we're looking at, about the types of businesses, about the strategies that we're looking at, right? Because at the end of the day, we are asset allocators, and sure, there's a lot of thought process that needs to go in behind it. There's a lot of thesis building, there's a lot of active management, but at the end of the day, the founder is the one who's running the show, which is why a lot of first few meetings is to understand the person behind the sort of company, to understand how does this person treat their co-founders, what is the relationship like, what is the working style like, what are the things that they value. One very I'll tell you a very interesting story, right? So one of the founders we met, this is pre-COVID, I think. Yeah, this is about 6 years back. A founder came in a cafe in Indanagar, as we would take a lot of meetings in Third Wave in Indanagar. That was before we had a co-working space that was like our co-working space, and before, I would say, Third Wave in Indanagar became very famous. That, now you can't even find a place to place your foot in. But anyways, so when I asked the founder that, hey, what's your revenue target for next year? The founder said, I want to raise at a 200 crore valuation. And I was very confused, like same confused face that you have. I had the same confused face, and the founder had good set of investors already sort of committed to them, and that's something that did put both Rishab and I off. We were like, that's not what we were talking about, right? But that gave a very good insight onto the mentality of the founder, wherein the important aspect for the founder was the valuation and not the revenue aspect. We still went ahead with the investment against our gut. That's one of the investments which hadn't worked out for us in our angel days. We went ahead with the investment again from a learning point of view. We were like, hey, that has a good set of investors. Maybe we'll get to understand on what does that side of the picture look like. Very prominent fund. So we're like, hey, maybe if such a prominent fund in this space, they would probably see something that we are not able to see today. And the thesis was good. The startup's idea was definitely good. There was definitely a gap with whatever they were trying to build. But over time, the founder did end up taking decisions post money, which post they got money in the account, which was more in favor of raising future capital, saying that, hey, let's say I'm launching an app as opposed to running a physical plus digital model, because the app will probably get me more traction and look better for an investor. Whereas the physical plus digital model was a guaranteed source of them getting closer to their customer, which was the farmer, right? So getting closer to the customer, giving a little bit more advice, actually making some money on the ground, even though they would still be loss making, but it was essentially a call for the long run, right? So the digital only call was a very short term call, because you were looking at only the investor and saying that, hey, once the investor comes in, then I will definitely use it, and then move to the phygital aspect. And the phygital call was a very long run call, saying that I'm building the base with my consumers, I'm being closer to them, I'm going to learn more, I'm going to do some transactions. And I would say that, technically speaking, is what should attract an investor, right? So we saw that as a founder mentality in that particular case. So very quickly we started, very naturally in our line of questioning as well, asking questions which are more maybe sometimes philosophical in nature, which are sometimes more long term in nature, and not particularly about the business, but more about who they are as a person, right? What are their goals and aspirations of running this company? If you have a family to take care of, if you have, let's say, your spouse and kids at home, then what is incentivizing you to take a pay cut, work maybe 16 hours a day, and sort of try to build a solution, and then also get flack from investors? Like, what is incentivizing you to do that? Because building a company is extremely hard, right? It's not easy. No matter who has to build a company, whether it's an investor or a startup founder, it's extremely hard. So what is driving you to do that, right? So apart from everything, apart from the startup idea, apart from the sector, the technology, the differentiator, all of those things are important, and everyone will come out and say that those are the things which you cannot overlook, right? But what is the driving force behind a founder, and what is driving this founder to stay probably incentivized in the long run? because like, hey, today it's a 10-person company, tomorrow hopefully it's a 1,000-person company, right? How are you going to be, at least today, can we make a guesstimate around it, as how are you going to be 6 years down the line, how are you going to be 10 years down the line, based on what are the things that you value today. That's something that's more important. That's something that comes out over multiple conversation over months, and founders don't realize it. But if you lack, let's say, humility, if you lack, let's say, integrity, if you have different goals behind running your company, that comes out in the way you speak, in what you speak. And because you're in your zone, you're saying a lot of things, and it's more cyclical, right? You're pitching, you're pitching. Sometimes you don't realize, but you're saying things which are very different from what the company should be doing, or what, let's say, are, or at least it reflects your core values to a certain extent. Let's say that founder probably did not realize that I asked a revenue question and just spoke about the valuation, right? There are hundreds of things like this which we end up picking up. The focus is a lot more in what is the founder actually saying, what kind of questions are they asking. Are they asking questions about us as well? Like, hey, are they judging us as investors also, or aren't they? They should be, right? Every founder should be asking an investor, right? Or are you just looking at the money? Are you just looking at timelines, right? So all those comes over conversations and not over emails. And that's why meeting a founder in person is very important. As a fund, we've done a lot of so first fund, it was just two of us. Rishab and us ran the entire first fund. We didn't have any other team member with us, so every single conversation that we had was with the founders, and that we had directly with the founders. So the founder got maybe only directly partner time, which was again very important for us, because it was also about probably building the right sort of DNA at Aeravati as well, with regards to how should founders be looking at Aeravati. Today also we don't have junior team members. We have only seniors, right? We have 4 people, all 4 are seniors, and all 4 look at companies directly. And sometimes there are 2 partners on a call, because it allows us to at least reject companies faster, so that we are not keeping them in the balance, hanging in the balance. Yeah.
That's fair enough. I mean, I've seen most of the founders who believe that there is some problem which they are trying to do non-technical, and they just want to add some tech around it so that they can speak with the investors, or say that, hey, boss, I'm gonna do this. You give me money, I'm gonna do this. But they don't understand the fact that, will the customer adapt to the tech what you're doing? Because they gotta. As that is what I believe, that first you have to build the product, get it tested, good or bad, get the feedback. Let the feedback to the investors. I mean, they are better guide in terms of what's happening in the market. So you can also understand what might be the possible ways to implement this tech, so that customers would also
No. I would say that, sorry to interrupt you, but I would say that as founders, I think a lot of importance is given to what investor thinks about the tech. It really doesn't matter. Right, there are maybe a handful of investors who come from a deep domain expertise, but at the end of the day, are they paying money to use your technology? No. So the opinion is moot. Right, very honestly speaking, and I'm not saying that to sort of just to conflict on a point. I say that to founders as well. So I've had a lot of founders reach out to me saying that, hey, we are exploring this idea, would love to get your feedback. And this is all these questions come because I do a lot of offline community sessions with early stage startups, and these are usually folks who are very very early in the startup journey, because I feel like I find good energy there. But anyways, that's not the point. I tell them very often that, boss, who's an investor to validate your technology? An investor can only validate your product market fit based on the numbers that are there, based on the trends that the investor sees, based on where the industry is going, based on how you're running the business, and all of those things. But whether your technology is going to be successful or not in the market, only a customer can decide. I can look at this product and be like, wow, what a great product. I've not seen a product like this before, right? But if the market is not ready to pay for that product, right, then how does it matter whether you've built an amazing product or not, right? If OpenAI had come in 10 years back and no one had the capacity to digest OpenAI's technology at that point in time, it would have been around the tech graveyards today. We wouldn't be talking about it almost every other day in some news channel or the other, right? So investor technology fit is not that important. Whether the customer is paying or not is the only important thing. You can always take feedback from investors on things that an investor knows best, which is with regards to go to market, maybe to a certain extent, with regards to maybe capital allocation, financial management, maybe hiring to a certain extent, because all these are stakeholder sort of driven aspects, right? But just investing purely because the tech is good is not like something, or asking an investor for feedback on tech only. I don't think there's a fit unless the investor is a consumer of that particular tech product.
Got it. And what about the compliance and finance as a piece? Why? Because I bet you, coming from that background, you have seen n number of portfolio and other founders where this has been a major loophole. I mean, most of the founders don't even understand that this is a major loophole.
It is, yeah.
What is the problem on this? That's one main thing. What is the problem on this?
I think it's a very large lack of awareness to a certain extent. See, the concept is very similar, right? Or it's very simple rather. Is that if you don't invest in something, right, you're not going to get the dividends. Very simple. If you don't invest in your tech team, you're not going to get a good tech product out. If you don't invest in a good finance and compliance team, you're not going to get the right results out. It's very simple, right? Founders often think that, hey, it's a back office function. Like, why am I paying someone to do something which I don't think is important? Let me get a, small time CA, traditional CA firm who's very happy to do it for 10,000 a year, 15,000 a year, just on paper, just it's more like a stamp saying that, hey, yes, you've submitted something to the government. Right, but something is not the benchmark, right? You're supposed to be right with whatever you're submitting, and I would very, I it's very sad to say that maybe 95% of the early stage startups out there don't have this sorted out. Right, even in our portfolio companies, when we started the diligence, let's say, most of them had multiple challenges with their finance and compliances. Now, did they have such challenges which where the red flags, were they even classified as red flags? No, right? They were orange flags. They took some time to fix. They probably took some money in the founders' end to fix, because it's better to fix it earlier rather than later. But we had some companies who we went through the 6-month cycle. The diligence got done, and the financial due diligence report was probably 100 pages long. And I have not seen that long a report for an early stage startup, because they were so messed up in their compliances. There were multiple inter-party transactions, multiple inter-branch transactions. None of them were classified well. A lot of mistakes, and we didn't go ahead with the round. It wasted a lot of time for us. It wasted a lot of time for the founders. And it wasted a lot of time for all the consultants in the middle. Everything, right? It was a waste of time, waste of money, because we still have to pay our consultants, right? Just because we didn't do the deal doesn't mean they don't get paid. We still have to pay them, right? So I would say that's something that a lot of early stage start founders lack. But I see it improving slightly now. Is because in the last maybe thanks to the entire 2021 phase, where a lot of companies went digital or at least started working from home, is a lot of virtual CFOs came up as a concept. Fractional CFO, virtual CFO as a concept came up, wherein we see a lot of new age CAs or at least finance professionals launching a virtual CFO company with the aim of helping a startup out and helping an early stage startup out, wherein they get a good quality for the same amount of let's say fees that you would pay to a traditional CA, and that quality sort of translates to maybe the right documentation, the right compliances, the right analysis from day one. It's still a very, very long way to go, because I don't think there's enough conversation that happens around finance and compliance for startups, because very frankly speaking, it is a boring topic. Like, how much will I speak about you having to do your papers right? I mean, that is not something that any startup founder enjoys, but that is something which every startup founder I've spoken to ends up regretting as soon as they get a venture investor on board. A H&I, a family office, is not doing that level of checks, but a venture capital fund is, right? Because we do realize that there are a lot of mistakes that a founder would make. If you do an allotment wrong, and this is just for the sake of conversation, let's say you got 2 crores of capital that came in, and you, let's say, did a misfiling for the 2 crores of capital, the private allotment that you're supposed to do, the penalty is as high as the amount of capital that you received. Right? So now technically, if you're speaking about it, it's a very high penalty, right? So technically it's a very high priority item. And a good CS, a good CA will help you solve these things. But a founder does not think about it. Accounting issues, payment issues. I've seen large companies with more than 50, 60 crores of GST sort of demands. And those can actually shut down a company, because that's not the kind of demand that you're used to having. And then on top of that, they'll have late fees and interest and penalties and whatnot, right? So all of those things, just because there was a problem that you probably swept under the rug at an early stage because you thought that's not a big enough problem, or that you are not big enough today and you'll think about the problem when you're big enough and you have a team member. All of those things are idealistic, but not practical. So one thing that I definitely do is help out the founders from scratch, at least by pooling in the right professionals. I'm not the expert on finance and compliance. I'm a CA, yes, sure, but I have not done finance and compliances for over 10 years now, right? My own tax filing I don't do, right? My own tax filing another CA does. So is for my company, whatever the case may be. But it's all about working with the right set of people. And that goes for everyone, but even more important for an early stage company, because all the odds are stacked against you to a certain extent. if anything delays your conversation around a fundraise, you're actually just putting your company in jeopardy. Just imagine if a small compliance issue, which could have been solved by just getting a good guy in who's just taking care of this entire thing, is delaying your fundraise or effectively canceling it, then you can actually put your company at risk. And I've seen it happen where a fundraise has gotten delayed indefinitely because there was, let's say, a notice that they didn't answer. The notice was a very superficial notice, right? It could have gotten quashed away very easily. But because they didn't answer it for a few months, that sort of catapulted into a couple of years and then whatever. So the company is obviously not affected that large by it, but it did affect maybe their growth cycles to a certain extent because they were not able to get that capital in at that right time.
I think this is one main thing which most of the founders do face. In fact, personally, to be honest, for me, when we started, although I come from a finance background, but still when, being in the shoes, I was like more on business, okay, how to make things work and a number of things. But I missed out a major piece that how important was the finance. So what happened was, I felt, I mean, I do have a CA. They're taking care of the accounts part and all. I was more focusing on, okay, how to get more customers, more revenue, and a number of things, which eventually led me to a piece that, okay, we need to raise funds, another piece.
Yeah.
But once I have understood the major loopholes in the system itself, which I'm running, I figured out, okay, I need to change this guy.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Once I have changed, that is where I realized I don't need to raise funds because my business itself is pretty good. I identified the loopholes, what I need to fix, just with the same accounting as a process. Just that the person was able to interpret and caution us on the right time.
Correct.
Which was not done by not having a proper focus towards it.
I agree.
So I think this is one main thing which everyone.
No, it's very
feels.
important. Absolutely, right? If someone is taking care of a very large headache for you, and if, let's say, you can utilize that person's extra time to do further analysis, understand things that maybe you guys don't have the time to understand, right? Because a founder cannot do everything. It's impossible, right? A founder cannot be good at everything out there, and neither can a founder do everything because then you're not able to scale. So it's very important to understand things you're not good at. As a founder, things which are not as part of your core competency, and also things with that you shouldn't be burdening yourself with, because any minute spent on something that does not need your time is a minute wasted on the next steps, is a minute wasted on strategies, a minute wasted on innovation, on the bigger picture items, right? So I agree with you, absolutely. That's a good call that you made as well.
It's late, but yeah, good call. And another thing what I've been seeing right now in the market is startups should know that raising fund is not objective of running a startup. What do you think?
No, 100%. And you can say, I've been around transactions itself for so long now that you would probably expect me to say that, hey, no, doing a transaction is very important. But that's something I've said it from day one, even though as an investment banker, we made money only when a startup raised. My first piece of advice would always be, boss, if you don't need to raise, please don't raise. Right? Because equity, especially when it comes to equity capital, because equity capital is very expensive. Right? Someone is not coming to you just so that they can get a 10% per annum appreciation or a 12%. They can do that with debt and with a low risk, and also do a leveraged asset, right? They are coming in to get 3-4 times their money back, bare minimum, whether it's an angel, whether it's a family office, venture capital fund, and depending upon the kind of model the VC runs, that minimum expectation is even higher, right? So technically speaking, it's very expensive. As soon as you raise capital, the trajectory of the company should be different. And everything that you do internally in the company also should be different, because if you're running at 30% year on year sort of a pace, as soon as you raise capital, can you still run at that pace is the question, right? And are you even equipped to raise capital? Are you equipped for the journey, right? What I think has happened, and this is something which you can say is probably like a byproduct of a growing startup ecosystem, is that with access to a lot of capital, everyone thinks that they need that capital, right? When I was advising companies, and this is when CRED was raising a lot of money, they were like, boss, that's also just an app. Why is he able to raise at 200 3000x whatever that multiple is. They didn't even have revenue for a long time. So like, why are they able to get that valuation without any revenue? Why can't I do it? And like, boss, that's not the goal, right? If he's raising at that valuation, if CRED is raising X amount at that valuation, raising so much money, then there's an even bigger game that they need to aim for, right? And he may have a completely different storyline. He may have a completely different pitch to the investors. Are you making that same pitch? Do you have the same sort of growth curve in your company? If you don't, then let's not go for it, right? It's a very simple sort of a conversation. So because fundraising in general gets glorified across the board, I would say a couple of years back, founding a company got glorified across the board, which is why being in a city like Bangalore, you get to see a lot of noise, I would say, right? So you attend an event in Bangalore, you attend an event outside Bangalore, there's a very, very large difference on the kind of conversation that you would have with a startup founder, because I would say Bangalore, community wise, is a great place to identify what trend is going on, because you will only meet only meet founders building in that trend while the trend is still active. And at one point of time it was fantasy gaming, one point of time it was decentralized finance, one point of time it was bitcoins or cryptocurrency overall. Today the conversation is AI, and you go to founders, you go to these events, every other founder is an AI founder, right? Which is why I feel there's some sort of guidance which is lacking with regards to the figuring out the objectives of building a company and where this company needs to go in. If your idea itself needs money to validate, then you need to rethink about how you're running the company. And you should not just as the first instinct go for investor money, because if that investor money, if you're building your entire business based on the fact that there'll always be investor money available, then once that tap stops, you will be left searching, right? And you will be parched for that money, and eventually a lot of businesses die, and we're seeing that happen, right? The businesses that sort of raised in the 2021, the record year for Indian startups, and 2022 cycles, right? If you notice, 2 years down the line, when their money ran out because they raised a lot of money to justify the growth, all of them shifted either to venture debt, to bridge financing rounds, or they moved towards a shutdown, right? Because they realized that in funding winter, no one was giving them money, right? So if your entire business model completely solely depends upon you raising capital, you're always, it's like you're handling a time bomb, right? Although you can say that certain businesses have to do that, it is mandatory for them. Businesses who are doing a lot of R&D or doing a lot of, I would say, back-end innovation, they have to keep raising capital, because they're doing something which is more, which is something that's never been done before, right? And sure, there needs to be capital that they need to keep raising for it, but those are also not businesses that are probably operating in the trend cycles, right? They're still operating with a larger vision, and if you're that, then it's great. If your business outcome is also that, then sure, but not every business is doing that, right? Building an app for farmers does not need you to raise $2 million. You can raise a small check if you want, or you can hire a couple of folks on an equity model if you want, and start building. You need people who believe in you, right? You don't need stupendous amounts of capital to build everything, because you need to realize every time you raise some capital, you're giving a percentage of your company, number one, and you need to give 10 times that capital back, right? And that's a call that you're making then, right? And if you're okay with that call, then sure, go raise capital, but it should not be the only option out there for you.
True. In fact, there has been this belief among founders that, boss, if I'm taking a debt, it is a lot of liability for me. It's a huge risk for me. They look at a short-term perspective, but they lack the core concept of taking a debt. Why? Because there also has been a thesis where debt is good when you have the customer, when you have everything ready, you are using it to scale the business, so that you know that you can, the money what you make, you can meet your debt, you can meet your interest and everything. Equity as a piece, or equity investments is good when you're developing something. Absolutely. Which results will come in the longer run.
Absolutely.
And I think that is one main thing which most of the founders still don't understand.
I agree. I met a founder 2 days back, and they were saying that they're raising about maybe 16 crores of capital. Out of that 16 crores, 8 crores was for working capital. I was like, boss, what are you doing? Please don't do that. Don't make that mistake. You are a business which is profitable, and this is not because that founder did not want to raise debt. It's more like a lack of understanding, because what happens is that you have two options when you're raising debt. You either have banks or you have NBFCs. NBFCs quote you very high rates, right? It's 16-18%, and then banks reject you, if you're very early, banks will reject you because it doesn't fall under the risk matrix of the bank. So as a founder, then you close off the debt conversation until you're at a very large scale. But this was a company maybe doing 40-50 crores of revenue. They were making some profits, right? They were raising about 16 crores, maybe about 8-9 crores, something that they already had. So told them, just close the round at 10 crores. Don't raise the amount for working capital, right? I can put you in touch with banks if you want. If you're raising that 10 crores, you're revenue generating, you're profitable, a bank will easily give you 5 to 6 crores of capital at a 10%, 9%, 11%, whatever it is, depending upon your company's risk profile. Why do you want to give away 5-6% of your company for that extra 6 crores? It doesn't make sense, right? And so that is, I would say, a conversation which needs to improve. I would say even banks are making a lot of efforts today to improve that as a conversation. Still a long way to go. I think with the way banks are structured, it's not possible for them to still do every early stage business. Sometimes you have to sort of bite the bullet and take an NBFC capital. And if you are confident that, hey, this is for scale up, if this is for working capital, I have a 30% margin, and 18% per annum interest is fine to a certain extent. If you have that sort of mindset saying that once I do take this money to, let's say, achieve scale, next year I can refinance it, right? Next year I can go to a bank, get 10% and refinance this 18% out. So those are calls that a founder should be capable of making, but not every founder has the insight to do that. Yes. Probably because, again, like you said, from your own example, the conversation is very much about, hey, a conversation with the bank or NBFC is going to waste 1 month of my time. Let me just raise equity. Equity is even more long term. It's fine. I'll raise it once and for all and not think about interest. A lot of those things are there. Equity is not the right answer for every business. Debt is also not the right answer for every business. It's just a matter of understanding what your business is, understanding where you are, and then taking that call. But I see debt early stage I would say, pre-series A onwards, or post you raise your seed round, debt as a conversation, I see it improving a lot more. We are not doing it yet. We will not be doing it for the next couple of years, maybe. But that is a conversation which I see improving. I want it to improve. Because there are a lot of good businesses that are getting built out post seed, and they can really benefit from a business momentum point of view if they get access to early stage debt. There's a lot of risk profiling that the banks can benefit from, considering that they have VC funds or family offices or HNIs backing these companies. So there are a lot of models that can be built out. I'm seeing some banks already experimenting with it, but a bank is a bank at the end of the day. Their risk profiling for it to, I would say, get a little more lenient will take some time. But I see some gaps over here, and looking very excited to see how this gap gets solved going forward, because this is something which is more unique to India. There are a lot of business communities, for example, which have been formed on the back of giving loans out. Yeah. Right. So I would say it's very natural to Indian business communities to give out these loans to help businesses. And there is a gap in post-seed stage funded startups, which can be solved over here.
I think this conversation has given me also a lot of insights. I bet it Hopefully. Would give all the audiences a lot of insights in terms of how to fix their system, how to understand business as a piece. Well, thanks a lot. Okay. It was a wonderful conversation.
No, thank you for calling.
If you had to say, so we as Big Blind, we do betting in startup ecosystem, and if you had to bet on a startup, what is the one liner thing what you would see to take a bet on the startup?
It's always the founder. It's just about the founder. There's nothing else that matters, technically speaking. So the one line is that it's the founder and the founding team. Yeah.
Founder mein dam hai to kuch bhi ho jayega.
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect.